Well, good morning, children. Today we are moving to the first lesson, that is A Tiger in the House. Its author is Ruskin Bond. See this picture, a man, a forest guard holding tiger cubs in his hands. Whenever the forest guards they find the tiger cubs or any other wild animals or the young one of their wild animals, they bring it to the notice of the officer, and the officers they take it to a veterinarian, and the veterinarian he tells them about the health and age of the cubs, right? And then even he tells whether it is a what kind of animal it is, whether it is a wild dog or a wild cat or any other animal. Okay. And then after little nurturing, they are sent to the zoo, we can say that. So here is one such story of a tiger or the tiger cub. It is the relationship between the author and the tiger, we can say that. So Timothy the tiger cub. So in the first paragraph, grandfather he discovered a tiger cub on the hunting expedition in the Tarai jungle near Dehra. Okay, he brought that cub to his home. Here, grandmother she named the tiger cub as Timothy, and their cook Mahmoud brought up tiger cub entirely on milk. And when milk proved too rich for him, they put him in a diet of raw mutton and cod liver oil, and further they changed they included its diet of pigeons and rabbits. So second paragraph. So here Timothy he had two companions. One is Toto the monkey and another is Mongrel the puppy. Mongrel puppy was found on the road by the grandfather. He brought it to his home, we can say that. So Timothy had two companions, that is Toto the monkey and the Mongrel the puppy, right? This Toto, it was bold enough to pull the young tiger's tail, and what do you call that? And it used to climb up the curtains whenever Timothy got angry. Whenever Timothy he became angry, it used to climb up the curtains to a safe distance, we can say that, right? And in third, next, in the beginning, Timothy appeared to be quite afraid of the puppy and darted back. That means it jumped back whenever this puppy it came too near to Timothy, right? He would make absurd dashes. Timothy he would make some absurd dashes at with his forepaws. Using his forepaws, he used to make some funny dashes at the mongrel puppy. We can say that, right? And then run to a safe distance. Finally, he allowed the puppy to crawl on his back and rest there. Finally, he allowed the puppy. That means now they have become the friends. Now they have become friends, isn't it? It's quite true. When we are new to some location or something like that, so in the beginning we may feel little bit difficulty in knowing the person, and once you know them, it will become easy for you to, so that you will feel comfortable with them. We can say that, right? So here the Timothy's favorite enjoyment or amusement was to stalk anyone who would play with him. So whoever played with him, he used to stalk at them. He used to stalk. That stalking is nothing but following them silently as if he is going to hunt them. Is going as if he is going to hunt them. And now here the author, that means grandfather's grandson, is coming to live with them, and he now is almost here, we can say that. So and he became the tiger's favorite. He became the tiger's favorites. So this tiger it had a crafty look. Crafty look is nothing but it had a deceitful look. It had a deceitful look in his glittering eyes. In his glittering eyes is nothing but shining eyes. Okay, and then and his body was crouching. That means it used to what do you call that? Bend his body like a timid, and then he would creep closer and closer to the that boy. He would creep closer and closer to the boy, suddenly making a dash for my feet. This Timothy, it used to make some dashes at the legs of the or at the feet of the boy. Okay, rolling over his neck back and kicking with delight. That means Timothy, he used to lie on his back like we lie while sleeping. It used to lie like that on the floor, and then pretending to bite this what do you call that boy's ankles. Okay, next see what happens. He was by this time the size of a full grown retriever, and when I took him out for a walks, people on the road would give us a wide berth. When he pulled hard on his chain, I had difficulty in keeping up with him. His favorite place in the house was the drawing room, and he would make himself comfortable on the long sofa, reclining there with great dignity and snarling at anyone who tried to get him off. So as the time passed, this dog it had grown into a middle-sized hunting dog. It looked like a hunting dog, and whenever it was on the walks, that means whenever the boy took Timothy to the walks, the people on the streets on the or on the roads, they would give him wide berth. They would give him wide berth. That means they go back to a safe distance so that they could pass easily. Why? Because he looked like a middle sized hunting dog, and sometimes it became very hard for the boy. What do you call that? It became hard for the boy. It became hard for the boy to control Timothy, because Timothy would rush forward. Timothy would rush forward right now, isn't it? Or you might have seen right. And Timothy's favorite place was drawing room, where he used to sleep like the men, where he used to sleep like the men on the sofa, and anybody who tried to get him off from the sofa, he would snarl at them. Snarl is nothing but making some angry sounds, as if he's going to bite, or is as if or if he's ready for a fight. Okay, then see, I told you that this is the image where you can say that that boy it is feeling some difficulty in handling the tiger, because the tiger is rushing. It is very rushing towards the people, we can say that. And you can also see that when it is on the road, the people, they are leaving the wide space for it. So Timothy had clean habits and would scrub his face with his paws exactly like a cat. He slept at night in the cook's quarters and was always delighted at being let out by him in the morning. So it means Timothy, it had clean habits. It had clean habits like the cats. You might have seen the cats usually after eating something, using their legs, four legs, they clean themselves. They clean their mouth themselves, and even sometimes they lick their body. They lick their body and clean their body, we can say that. So he had some clean habits, we can say that. And in the night he slept at the cook's quarters. Who is the cook here? Mahmud. Okay, he slept in the cook's quarters, and he was very delighted. And he was very delighted in the morning when he was let out. When he was let out by the cook, we can say that. So one of these days, declared grandmother in her prophetic manner, we are going to find Timothy sitting on Mahmud's bed, and no sign of the cook except his clothes and shoes. One day, grandmother, in a prophetic manner, in advance, speaking like as if it is going to happen, telling the things in advance. She told in advance that one day we are going to find Timothy sitting on the Mahmud's bed, and there will be no Mahmud except his clothes lying on the bed. Clothes and shoes lying on the bed, and Mahmud won't be there. It means that grandmother wanted to say that Timothy is going to eat, or it is going to kill and eat Mahmud, right? Of course, it never came to that. But when Timothy was about 6 months old, a change came over him. He grew steadily less friendly. When out for a walk with me, he would try to steal away to stalk a cat or someone's pet pekinis. Sometimes at night, we would hear frenzied cackling from the poultry house, and in the morning there would be feathers lying all over the veranda. Timothy had to be changed up more often, and finally, when he began to stalk Mahmud about the house with that looked like a villainous intent, grandfather decided it was time to transfer him to a zoo. Right? So here, what happens? Its meaning is what grandmother said that she told some in a prophetic manner that Mahmud won't be there, but its shoes and what do you call that, clothes will be lying on the bed. But that did not come true. That did not come true. However, did Timothy, when he was 6 months old, a change came over him. A change came over him. They saw a change in him. What was that change? Yes, he became less friendly. He became less friendly, and when he was out for walk with the boy, he would try to steal away the someone's pet Pekinis. Pekinis is nothing but Chinese dog. We can say that Chinese dogs, and sometimes they this what do you call that? Grandfather, grandmother, and the boy, they used to hear some frenzied cackling, frenzied voices from the poultry house. Frenzied is nothing but here unpleasant or disturbing noises, as if someone is eating something. Just think that someone is eating bones or something like that, we feel something disturbed, isn't it? So like that, some they heard some voices coming from the poultry house, and in the morning they used to see only the feathers of the birds lying all over the veranda, right? So this is the reason Timothy had to be chained up more often. Hmm? Often and often, or again and again, Timothy had to be chained up because of his attitude, we can say that, right? Or changing instincts. And finally, what did he do is he tried to stalk at Mahmud. Okay, one day he stalked at the Mahmud with a villainous intent. Villainous intent is nothing but as if he's going to hurt or kill Mahmud. So therefore, grandfather, he decided it is the time to transfer Timothy to a zoo. Right. So now see now what happens next. So the nearest zoo was at Lucknow, 200 miles away. So grandfather, he reserved a first class compartment for himself and Timothy, right? Only these two were there, and nobody was in that compartment, we can say that. Grandfather took him to the Lucknow Zoo, where the authorities were waiting for the um, waiting to receive the what do you call that, the tiger, which was well civilized, we can say that, or well fed and well civilized tiger. Okay. So after that, about 6 months later, after 6 months, this when grandparents were visiting relatives in Lucknow, they had a chance, they got an opportunity of meeting their relatives in Lucknow. So grandfather took it as an opportunity to meet Timothy, and what do you call that? To see the Timothy, we can say that. So, however, the boy was not there with the grandfather to go to Timothy, we can say that. But the boy heard something about the Timothy when grandfather returned back to his place. So, arriving at the zoo, grandfather made straight for the particular cage in which Timothy had been interned. The tiger was there, crouched in a corner, full grown and with a magnificent striped coat. So, what happens is here, so the grandfather he went directly to the zoo, and after going to the zoo, he directly went to the cage where Timothy had been placed. Okay, so and the tiger was already present there, crouched in a corner. That means it was sitting in a corner. It was fully grown. It was fully grown and with a magnificent striped coat. Striped coat. Coat is nothing but you can see some stripes, just like when you see a tiger, we see black stripes, yellow stripes, hmm? Isn't it? White stripes. So like that, magnificent striped coat, we can say that. So the tiger approached the boars and allowed grandfather to put both hands around his head. Grandfather stroked the tiger's forehead and tickled his ear. Uh, and whenever he growled, smacked him across the mouth, which was his old way of keeping him quiet. So finally, grandfather, after going to the cage, he stood out of the cage, and the tiger approached the bars. The tiger came near to the grandfather, and grandfather put his hands around Timothy's head. Okay, grandfather stroked the tiger's forehead. It stroked the tiger's forehead and tickled his ears. And whenever he growled, something sounds when he made something sounds, this grandfather he would smack him across the mouth like this. Okay, which was his old way of keeping him quiet. Grandfather used this technique to make him quiet whenever he growled, we can say that. See, this is the picture where is what do you call that, so putting his hands over the tiger's head and smacking. Hmm? And the people, they are observing him, and whereas the forest god is keenly observing the uh, grandfather. So here what happens, the tiger it licked the grandfather's hands and only sprang when a leopard in the next cage snarled at him. Grandfather shooed the leopard away, right, and the tiger returned to lick his hands. But every now and then the leopard would rush at the bars and the tiger would slink back to his corner. So what happens is here, the tiger it came and licked the grandfather's hands, and it only moved away when the what do you call that, leopard in the next cage snarled at him. That means when the leopard in the next cage it made some what do you call that, sounds, say looking at tiger, the tiger would go back and sit in a corner, and the grandfather he smacked the sorry he shoot the leopard away. Okay, and again it came to the bars and approached the uh, grandfather, we can say that. So this was happening. So here, with that, a number of people had gathered to watch the reunion when a keeper pushed his way through the crowd and asked grandfather what he was doing. So many people had gathered there, had assembled there to watch the reunion, to watch the meeting. Okay, meeting of a what do you call that? A tiger, a master and a tiger. We can say that master and a servant. We can say that, right? So when so in this only that cage keeper he came forward and asked grandfather what he was doing, what he was doing. So the grandfather said that I'm talking to Timothy. Weren't you here when I gave him to the zoo 6 months ago? Were you not here? when I came to drop Timothy to this cage. So that cage keeper, he says that I haven't been here very long, please continue your conversation. But I have never been able to touch him myself. He's always very bad tempered. The cage keeper is telling that I have not been here. I wasn't here for many days. And then he says that he is a very ill tempered. This tiger, it is very ill tempered. I am not successful in touching this tiger. He says that. So grandfather, what he says is, please you shift this Timothy to some other cage. See that Lefford in the next cage, it is torturing or it is troubling the tiger. He said it to the and then he said that if you want, I will go and meet the superintendent of the zoo. So what happens again? Grandfather, he went in search of the superintendent. By the time superintendent had left to the home, okay, so it was not possible for him to meet the superintendent. So he went to the Timothy's cage and said goodbye, because it was getting dark. It was getting darker and darker. So as a result, to say goodbye to Timothy, he went to the cage. And then there itself, he had been stroking and slapping Timothy for about 5 minutes. Okay, so before telling goodbye, he was stroking and slapping the Timothy for about 5 minutes. When he found another keeper observing him with some alarm. So the other another keeper, he was watching very keenly, eagerly at the grandfather. He saw, when he saw that keeper, and grandfather recognized that it was the same keeper when I came here to what do you call that, drop the Timothy here. Okay, so grandfather, he says that to the cage keeper, another cage keeper, he is asking, do you remember me? Do you remember me? Now, why don't you transfer Timothy to another cage away from his stupid Leopold? So he's telling to that cage keeper who was in the beginning. To him, he's telling, please shift this tiger to another cage, because this Lefford is troubling the Timothy. He says that. But sir, stammered the keeper, it is not your tiger. So when the cage keeper, he heard that heard what do you call that grandfather, he said to him, sir, it's not your tiger. It is not your tiger, right? I know, grandfather. He says, I know. I realize he is no longer mine, but you must at least take a suggestion from me right now. So it means that grandfather, when he said that, when the cage keeper, he said that it is not your tiger. So the grandfather, he meant that, yes, of course it is not mine now. Why? Because now I handed over the tiger to you people. Now it is your responsibility. I know that, but you should take suggestions from me. He says that. So the keeper again further, he says that, I remember your tiger very well. Said the tiger, what do you call that, cage keeper, he says that, I remember your tiger very well. He died 2 months ago. Died? Exclaimed grandfather. So grandfather, when he heard that, heard the words Timothy died, he was shocked. He was shocked. Okay, exclamation. Right, when you see somebody in the morning and in the afternoon, if you get a news that he died, so are you surprised? You are stunned. That means you are shocked. How could be this possible? Isn't it? So that was the reaction of the grandfather. He was stunned. He was shocked to hear the news of death of Timothy. So that cage keeper further says that yes sir, it died of pneumonia. The tiger had pneumonia and it died. The tiger to the tiger to whom you are talking, it is not your tiger, it is not your tiger. Right down, it is not your tiger. This tiger was trapped in the hills only last month. We got this tiger last month trapped in the hills. It is very dangerous and bad tempered, okay, or ill tempered, right? It is not your tiger, it is not your tiger, and it is not Timothy. Grandfather could think of nothing to say. The tiger was still licking his arm with increasing relish. Grandfather took what seemed to be to him an ace to withdraw his hand from the cage. See, grandfather was unable to believe that Timothy had died, right? And the tiger in the cage, it was still licking his grandfather's arm with increasing relish. That means enjoyably or delightfully, or just like as if it is going to taste, right? In a such a way, it is licking the grandfather's hand as if it is going to have his hand in his food, right? So grandfather suddenly he withdraw his hand from the cage. Suddenly he took out his hand from the cage when he heard the words of the keeper. With his face near the tigers, he mumbled, "Good night, Timothy," and giving the keeper a scornful look, walked briskly out of the zoo. See, with his face near the tigers, he mumbled. So, he took his face near to the tiger and said to the, that means he whispered in the in the ears of the tiger, good night, Timothy. And he gave a scornful look at the uh, what do you call that keeper, and actively walked out of the zoo. Briskly is nothing but actively walked out of the zoo, and scornful look is nothing but looking with disrespect. Why? Because grandfather was unable to believe, he was not in a state of believing that Timothy's death. Okay, it has really really hurt. It had really hurt grandfather. Okay, so he was unable to believe this. Why? Because on the other hand, he saw that the tiger in the cage, it was licking his hands with a relish, with a great relish. And then it was quiet when the grandfather put his head around his the grandfather put his hands around his head, and then when he was smacking at his mouth, when it growled, and then punching on the face. So it was quiet, and the grandfather he believed the tiger in the cage to be a Timothy only. That is the reason the grandfather uh, said finally. He said, "Good night, Timothy." Okay, it is mainly because of this, and he gave a scornful look at the what do you call that? He looked very scornfully at the what do you call the keeper, because he was not happy with the news that was given by the keeper, and he was unable to believe the news of death of Timothy. Okay, this completes your lesson. Thank you.